Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and it's waiver wire time again. But now it's week 8, and of course, Derek Brown, DBro, the King of Bros, is going to join me to talk about all the guys to pick up because there were a lot of injuries this week, in case you didn't notice. So I hope you have some fab left because you're going to need it all. And of course, there's nobody better than my good pal who's joining us today, my brother from another mother from across the pond, Lord Adam Murfet, the host of the 5 Yard Rush podcast. Murph, you can follow him on Twitter at Murph_NFL. Murph, a lot of injuries yesterday. Which one was the most crushing for you? As I press the guest, after all the injury dust has settled, which ones really killed your teams the most?
I mean, I think really Breece Hall, just because I was quite early on picking him up. He wasn't drafted all that much, or there was a lot of people that dropped early, and I didn't give myself loads of exposure to him, but because we knew that breakout was coming and we saw it coming, that one's a killer. Although I do have still some Michael Carter shares somewhere, so
thank goodness.
That helped. Yeah, thank goodness for that. Whew. No, that one's a killer. And DK Metcalf, as much as again, not a player I necessarily overexposed myself to, but sometimes you were getting really good value in him. In some drafts, right towards the end, he was going towards sort of late 4th round, and you're thinking, yeah, I'll take some of that. And yeah, that one's going to be a killer as well. So brutal day, as you say. But it's been a brutal season. I mean, like, you're doing your rankings on a Sunday, and you got 20 wide receivers on the injury report, all questionable. You're like,
it's very hard.
Just throw it up in the air.
It's been very difficult. And it's funny you mentioned about the value you're getting on DK. Price enforcing, I think that is that's my big takeaway from this season. I had in flex, like DBro and I have talked about this before. I talked about it with Pat actually this morning, where Josh Jacobs floated to me as my 3rd running back in that draft, and it's a super flex. And I just took him not because I loved Jacobs, but I was like, well, I got a price enforce here. That is, I think, the big takeaway from this season. When you see value dropping, even if you don't like the offense, you don't think things are going in the right direction, you already have 2 running backs. My 2 running backs I had in that team, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift. Thank goodness I drafted Josh Jacobs. He is saving my bacon in that league. But DBro, it feels like price enforcing next year is something I want to take into the shows, and I think we should really remind people about. I don't care if you like the situation, like the talent. If you think that the talent is an opportunity where they could still be useful, go ahead and take them before you take the unknown.
We should, Joe, because after week 7, we know nothing, Joe Pizzapia. We know nothing. We know nothing at all. Like,
well, this is the reset.
Up is down. Dogs and cats are living together. It's chaos, man.
Well, this is the reset, right? I think the first 6 weeks of the season, 7 weeks, is about what we did with the draft. And now you have the reset of the season. And now we know who teams are, who they aren't, how injuries have opened it up. And we're going to talk about all these things. We're going to talk about the most added players here for us. And for me, my sleeper waiver wire pickup of the week is, of course, D'Onta Foreman, the running back of the Carolina Panthers. So Christian McCaffrey gets dealt. You see Chuba Hubbard get some work in there, but you also see Mr. Foreman get some work, especially after Chuba got hurt. He is rostered in 64% of sleeper leagues. And I know that's still a high number, but hey, he's still available in 30%. If you can get him, go get him. That's the dude, I think. And DBro, you and I talked about this at length on Sunday on the live stream about, if you make an investment in a player as an organization and you go pay another running back, if you thought Chuba was really the guy, I don't know why you were looking to pay D'Onta Foreman when you could have just invited somebody to camp for depth. So to me, that was always that flag where I thought Foreman might be that dude. And both look good. Both had moments in this game. But at the health standpoint now, it certainly feels like Foreman's backfield, at least for next week. Is that true?
I mean, right now, considering with Chuba leaving the game with an injury, we have to at least lean that way. And look, I threw this out on Twitter. I threw it in our Discord. We talked about it on the stream. I'll own the L. I was not in on any Carolina running back because, honestly, the Panthers' offense has looked terrible up to this point. And okay, we have to readjust. Apparently, the Carolina Panthers are just the southern version of Chicago Bears, and they can continue to run regardless of bad quarterback play. The defense is surprising us, and the Buccaneers are crap, side note. But this all comes down to, yes, like we need to chase volume and chase running backs, so I'll own the L there because D'Onta Foreman played extremely well, and so did Chuba Hubbard. I mean, we got to give the man his due, especially after pregame reports that he was going to be the starter, and then we saw that come to fruition, Joe. I mean, look, if Chuba's still out there, I got to be picking him up, man.
All right, so if Chuba's out there and you've got him as your number one ad this week, how much would you spend on him? Like Foreman, to me, I'm spending a fair amount. I mean, I already spent a fair amount last week on him in anticipation of perhaps that trade where I just wanted to make sure I locked him in. Some people added Chuba. I added Deonta. Do you think that Hubbard is a guy, I don't want to say empty a tank, but how much percentage that you have left are you willing to go there for him? Because he is only available in half of leagues on Sleeper. He's rostering 49%.
I mean, I would say I'm not trying to break the bank for Chuba. I mean, I think 10, consider where we're at too, Joe, like this part of the season, you also kind of testing out or figuring out how much fab your other league mates have, because they might have like busted the tank on somebody else too. So, you know, it's like how much do they have versus you have, and you're playing that entire like game of chess. But for me, it's around 10%. Like, I'm not going to totally just empty the clip on him. I think he's going to be like in the RB3, 4 category. And so to me, he's not an empty the clip type of player. Like, and I'll give Chuba his credence, man. I was not high on him as a prospect. Wasn't high on him last year, but 11 touches, 73 total yards, and a score, and he outsnapped Foreman through the first 3 quarters, 22-14. I mean, it plays in fantasy. So put it this way, if he had the backfield all to himself, then yes, I think it's a scenario where you're looking at a low-end RB2. But seeing as they're splitting it, and what Foreman did, I think they're going to continue to split in the RB3 category. I'm just not going to break the rest of the bank for him.
All right, Murph, let's talk about the guy number 1 for you in the running back column for waiver wire ads for week 8. Who is it?
Yeah, it's got to be Gus Edwards for me. So Gus Edwards was someone in the last week or 2 weeks of drafts. I was drafting in the last round because he was on IR, and teams I had an IR stash and just stashed him away for a scenario that is just breaking out now, which we appreciate that in Baltimore. It's a really complicated situation. They like to run 2 backs. We know they've got plenty of depth. Everyone was rushing towards Kenyon Drake. That always looked like a bit of a trap play. Because of the fact you still had J.K. Dobbins there originally, and now with J.K. Dobbins down, we knew that Gus Edwards was going to be back. It was a case of when, not if. And we knew that he was always going to have a significant part of this offense. And we just see how good he was and how much they missed him. He was great on the goal line, dominated the early down work. This is the key thing now. You're looking at Drake. Drake has always been these players, coming off that big week last week in week 7. Everyone's like, oh, well, I'm going to put all my fab in on Drake. But Drake's always been inconsistent. He's always, he was designated the starter week 1 and then disappeared. Justice Hill has never, ever broken out in this offense. He's never had an established role in this offense. Everyone was really high on him when he got drafted, and then he just became an absolute nobody. Gus Edwards has always been a dominant guy in this offense, not the guy. And now you've got J.K. Dobbins on IR. And people think, okay, that's a minimum of 4 games. But J.K. Dobbins gets hurt a lot. And J.K. Dobbins is the type of player that they're going to be very cautious on. Right. You've got to look at it as well. The Ravens are very likely to make the playoffs. They have a bottom, one of the 5th easiest schedules for the remainder of the season. So they're not going to rush J.K. Dobbins back. They don't need J.K. Dobbins back in the regular season. They're going to think about the postseason for him and make sure that he is fresh and ready to go there. You look at the lineups and you look at who they're going to be playing Baltimore over the next few weeks. They've got Carolina, who can't defend against the run, Jacksonville, the Steelers, and then the fantasy playoffs. They've got the Browns, who got absolutely torn apart.
We all know about the Browns. Rushing defense
they just tore apart anyway. Atlanta, who can't stop the run, and the Steelers. I mean, that's a great fantasy playoff. I'm not saying that Edwards necessarily is going to be the lead or the feature back for them in the playoffs. But when you're picking up waiver wires, guys, at this point in the season, shoot for the moon. There is a role where you should definitely be getting some flex play stability. But I'm looking at all the guys out there. You mentioned Chuba Hubbard, running back 3 play. I mean, he's going to be a flex at best play in some leagues. I want to see the guy who could potentially rise to the top. And I'm not saying RB1, but sort of top 15 play. And that is what Gus Edwards can potentially get you, especially when he's dominating the goal line work, especially as they're going to run the ball a lot, Baltimore. I just really like this situation.
And Gus has always been the guy who has been very capable. I mean, 2 years ago, he saved a lot of people's bacon, and it's we always want to underrate him or undervalue him, but the Gus bus is one of those things like you can rely on. And right now, the roster percentage out there, I know a lot of people did add him, but still, he's only 38% rostered. How much would you spend on Gus Edwards in terms of fab, real quick?
See, I'm similar to DBro. I wouldn't want to empty the clip on him, but I do think he's worth more than Chuba Hubbard. So I think that 10 to 15% range, I think, is a good amount of money to spend on him. I don't think that many people are going to be chasing Gus Edwards because they know what he's like. They know the fact that he can get hurt. He's someone that hasn't been on people's radars. I always find that when I'm in leagues, fantasy managers want to see 2+ weeks of production. So I think this is kind of the last week where you can get Gus Edwards for a decent price. If he goes off again on Sunday,
now. No,
yeah,
see, I would invest now. I'd rather be proactive than reactive. Now he's number 2 on your list, DBro, as well. What's your thoughts in terms of spend? Because I mean, in terms of breaking down, Murph did it all, so it's really not too much to be said. But in terms of spend, where are you at with Gus? Are you in that proactive camp as well?
I am. I mean, for me, it's probably going to be around 10%. I'm a little bit lighter. And the reason I put him in number 2 versus Chuba Hubbard is you look at the Carolina backfield, it's a two-way split. You look at Baltimore, and Gus got 50% of the opportunities, but it still was a three-way split. Like, he played 23 snaps, Justice Hill got 20, and Drake got 17. And Gus didn't even lead them in routes. That was Justice Hill, even though he didn't get any touches. So while I like Gus Edwards a lot, I'm also mindful of how much they're splitting it up, and that's not even accounting for Lamar Jackson on the ground. We didn't see him rush for any touchdowns, but I think we're having a very different conversation if Gus Edwards goes for 16 and 66, but Lamar Jackson gets the touchdowns on the ground, which easily could have happened. So for me, it's about 10%, and that's why I put him second, even though I do like Gus Edwards, and he is going to have a lot of value, especially with the upcoming matchups.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, if Michael Carter is somehow available, we'll get to him in a second. That's another guy you got to think about adding now. Again, some of these guys are higher roster percentage, but you got to look because sometimes guys get dropped. And the next guy Murph is going to talk about, RB, is a guy that was rostered on a lot of teams, but has been dropped the last few weeks. His roster percentage on Sleeper is just 49%. So he's available in half your leagues, Murph. Who is that name?
Yes, Khalil Herbert. Now, we all know that, we just made, Debo's made a joke about the Chicago Bears, and they, the Chicago Bears offensively are terrible, but they run the ball a lot, and that's what we're looking for here in this position. And Eberflus coming out on the verge of this game tonight, and this is being recorded on Monday, is that he's going to run the hot hand. That to me is the clearest indication yet that Khalil Herbert is going to get a lot more work. Now it's been pretty much a 50-50 backfield. I think Herbert's had one more carry and I know that Montgomery's been injured, but you're looking at what he's done this year, Khalil Herbert. He's been absolutely phenomenal. For starters, there is no running back with over 20 carries that has a better yards after contact metric than Khalil Herbert. He's averaging 3.1 yards after contact. He's just an awesome guy. He's broken off 12 10-plus rushes this year. Which these are the names that have more. And keep in mind, he's only run 63 times. He's not exactly like dominating, getting hundreds of carries here. The only people that have more 10-yard plus carries or rushes this year: Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, who's done for the year, it looks like, Derrick Henry, and then you've got Jones and Miles Sanders. That's it. They're the only players who have more 10-yard rushes than Khalil Herbert. He's going to put up big yardage. He's also one of only 6 running backs that have put up multiple 40-yard rushes this season. So when he gets loose and he gets free, he puts it up for big yardage. And, when you're looking at an offense that's bad, and the Bears are bad, I'm not expecting him to get 20-plus carries, but Khalil Herbert doesn't need 20-plus carries to be relevant because he's hard to bring down, because he's breaking off big runs, and he's got the numbers this season that back that up. So whereas you need a back potentially needs 20 carries to be really fantasy relevant, he actually only needs about 13, 14. That's more than doable because they're terrible when he's the leading yardage player from scrimmage, not named Justin Fields, on that offense. Yeah. It's just an absolute, and also with that one more carry he's had than David Montgomery, he's broken off 156 more yards.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what it's about. It's the explosiveness, and that's the thing. Montgomery's more of that plodding grinder kind of back, and Herbert has more of the upside there, which is why late in drafts, God, how many drafts did we do, DBro, where Khalil Herbert ended up on these rosters and these mock drafts we did? Like, I just want that guy on my team, Chief. That's just the way to do it. Now, the next guy on your list, number 3, DBro, I think there's this looming specter of return of another running back, potentially the unknown. But right now, I don't know how much in week 8 we have all these injuries, how much we care about that. So let's talk about the running back you have number 3 on your list this week for week 8.
Yeah, I mean, look, before I get to my guy, I love Murph bringing up because honestly, it blew my mind that Khalil Herbert was out there as much as he is. And when you can get the Chicago version of Tony Pollard on your roster, you got to go ahead and do that. But moving over to my guy in Atlanta, and he has been a lock for 15 plus carries ever since he hit the starting lineup. It's not sexy, and I'm not telling you to break the bank for him, but Tyler Allgeier, 3 to 5%. He's only rostered in 48% of sleeper leagues. And we know what the Falcons want to do. It's the only thing they want to do with Arthur Smith, and that's run the ball. And so, Joe, we talked about him on the DFS episode. Well, he got in the end zone. He is quietly running a lot of routes. Every single week since he's been the starter, 50 to 60% of the routes per dropback have been for Tyler Allgeier. Now, he's not getting any targets because that's not their offensive design, but he's out there running routes, and if he does grab a few targets, that's icing on the top of the cake. So Allgeier is a guy that I look at, and this is why I have him third on the totem pole, is he's not as explosive as the other runners. He's not in a really good offense. And so it's just a volume play. And at best, you're looking probably similar stat lines to what he put up this week. Low in flex territory. If he gets in the end zone, he crests the top 24 if they have a really good rushing week. So that's why I'm going with Allgeier at number 3.
Now, you're going with that same team, Murph. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I think, again, I go back to what I just said. It's about shooting for the moon. Not necessarily for the moon, but a bigger slice of the pie. So I'm going to go against DBro here and go for Damian Williams. We know that he is due back very soon. He says he's ready to go. We thought we might see him this week. That hasn't happened. So therefore, we're in week 7, So we're looking like potentially he's back in week 8. The reason I want to go this, first of all, week 1, Damian Williams was ahead of Tyler Allgeier and Caleb Huntley and whatever other iteration there is in the backfield on the depth chart. Gets hurt, not a good thing. Allgeier, yes, okay, he's getting volume, but volume is the only good thing he's got going for him because for the 3rd straight game, he's under 3.5 yards per carry. Huntley, not even in this game because the game script doesn't suit him. They need to be ahead, so he's pretty much out with the wash. Damian Williams is a much better running back. He's a much better running back than these two. He's more consistent. He's also just a lot stronger. I mean, bottom line is you're looking at what he does. Again, I talk about yards after contact. That to me is the measure of how good a running back is. Does anyone with a good offensive line, a good offensive scheme, could put up yards? But actually, how good are you once the contact's made? Because that is the difference between the very good and the average running backs. Since 2017, the only time that Damian Williams has been under 2.5 yards per contact was last season when he was on the Bears. And even then, he was only at 2.4, I think it was 2.4 yards per carry, and he was buried behind Khalil Herbert because Khalil Herbert's awesome. Tyler Allgeier, 1.5 yards per carry. I mean, he's right up there with Darrell Henderson, like in terms of average ability, in terms of yards after contact. Huntley, 1.6, not much better. For me, Damian Williams just completely blows both these guys out of the water. The only person who's going to blow Damian Williams out of the water is Cordell Patterson when he's back. But I think the role was for Patterson maybe to go more outside if Williams was fit. I think, as you mentioned, teams bringing in running backs. Damian Williams was brought in for a role in this offense, and I think he's going to be a decent player. I don't think he's going to be like a huge league winner, but I think he's someone who's going to put up good low-end RB2, RB3 numbers.
And that's the thing, because he didn't play this week, he's free. And I think when you're looking at that, you could probably drop a buck or two on him, just stash him to see. Yeah. And I think you can get away with that. As like you're saying, like if you want to put in for Allgeier because you think next week he's going to be a guy who can help you and you need the help, that's fair. But put that $1 bid in for Williams as well. He's just 6% rostered in Sleeper. Tyler Allgeier is 48% rostered. So, you know, if Allgeier's already up there, again, you need help. There's buys, there's injuries, there's a lot going on. I touched on Michael Carter already. How much do you want to spend? I think that's the question. If he's still available, how much? Give me a number, Murph. Give me Murph. Give me a number on Michael Carter you want to spend if he's still out there.
I think it's got to be 30 to 40% because you're looking at what's left and barring a significant injury to a player and a elite hack. So, for example, like if Zeke, well, mind you, Tony Pollard's so well owned anyway, it doesn't matter. Right. For me, he's kind of as good as he gets now. He's going to have no competition for carries. That offense, again, is going to be done a lot on the ground. Not great. Zach Wilson is proving once again he's not. an elite fantasy option, and he's not doing much with that passing game as we saw yesterday. So
you could
for
just
me,
take away elite. You could just say fantasy option. You could just have said that.
do that as well. I've just been kind. I know Jets fans
not me.
listen.
We're
Jets
not
fans
a
are listening.
I'm the
Jets
healer
fans
on
are winning
these parts.
games. We got to be nice
Hey
to them.
man, look, nobody's defended the Jets defense more than me on the IDP show, on this show, on the live stream, on the DFS show. Oh my goodness, how much Jets did I have on DraftKings yesterday? All right, DBro, your number on Michael Carter. I know we emptied the clip a couple weeks ago on Kenneth Walker. If you missed on Kenneth Walker, is this like the wish.com version here?
Yep. Whatever you got left, you put it in for Michael Carter. If he's out there, you missed on K-Dub, then you go ahead and sit there and swing for Michael Carter. Michael Carter has been one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL. Every time he's gotten, we've seen what he can do last year, this year in the starting role. Empty the clip. It's easy.
I know we've got a lot of other names to get to too, so we're going to pick up the pace. But before we do, Isaiah Pacheco also named the starter. And as we talked about the live stream on Sunday, DBro, I was like, be careful with that because that means different things. I will say this, goodness, he looks good when he's returning the football. And they have a bye this week, which is some extra time. If they're going to grow him into that role, he is still a player. On Sleeper, he's less than some other leagues, but I'm saying he's out there. This is a week where if he was still floating out there, people still might not pick him up. Pick him up. Just put him on the roster. Just put him there. Kyren Williams, is that another guy that either of you want to pick up? Jump in.
Yeah, I do, because I think Darrell Henderson's been that bad that I think
it's hard to debate that point, DBro. Can you debate it?
No, I'm not going to debate it at all. What I'm going to say is I just don't think Kyren Williams is any good. He's small and he's slow, and the Rams' offensive line is
feel personally
bottom
attacked
5,
right now when you said those things.
Well, I was describing both of us, Joe, so if we're being real here.
Look, I'm not slow. I think we've already proven that on the football field.
I am. Myself and my double ankle braces will just sit back in the pocket.
I'm quick, DBro. No. Quick. Shifty.
You're shifty. You're scrappy.
Shifty
you're
and
a
tough.
gamer.
I'll play with 9 fingers. We already know that. All right, let's because I did. Let's go to the wide receiver ads of the week here. Murph, let's kick things off with you. And I can't believe we've gotten here. If this isn't the indication of how weird stuff got this season, this is it right here. Go ahead, Murph. The stage is yours.
Parris Campbell, man.
Here we go.
Here we go. This is where you know that the fantasy season has just gone completely off the rails, where we're looking at Parris Campbell going,
yeah, I know. Everyone's excited. All right.
Everyone's like over the moon.
I'm an OG truther, just so I'm going to throw that out there.
I know.
So I'm happy.
That makes one happy. Of us. I think you were probably, I mean, there were a lot, especially when
my receipts are out there.
You and Tags, the only 2 people, and I used to give both of you crap about Parris Campbell on a daily basis. And look, I'm glad that finally he's relevant. Go ahead, Murph, make him relevant.
We say he's relevant. He's going to be relevant for about 2 weeks before that hamstring goes again. As we know that happens.
Put that on that man.
But while that's happening, there's cash in and make hay when the sun shines. Parris Campbell. Last 3 weeks, 90% of snaps, 100% of snaps, 98% of snaps. The Colts have decided that with the best running back in football, that they're just going to throw the ball a ton and just not worry about running the football, which is just, I don't know what's going on with teams this year that have decided that the run is just no longer relevant. But that's a different story. The last 2 weeks, 20 targets, 17 catches, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 in each game. He's just getting volume and he's making the most of it. And again, I'm not sitting here convinced that he's going to win you a championship anytime soon. I think he'll probably be well done before the playoffs. But I think if you're in bye week situations this week, next week, I think he's going to be a very useful volume asset. I was big on Alec Pierce a couple of weeks ago. I'm still big on him. I think all 3 of these wide receivers are going to be top 30, 36 plays most weeks because of the amount they're throwing the football. So you need to pick them up. You need to have Parris Campbell, and it's about keeping the league honest. I think you can get him for probably 5% of fab. Maybe you might have to go a little bit more. I don't think you need to go crazy. Like I wouldn't be dumping 10% plus. And if people want to go and dump that on him, good luck to you. I think keep the league honest. If no one's going to pay that for him, you grab him and get yourself a bargain. And I think
he's 11% rostered too, so he's certainly out there and available in leagues. DBro, who's your number 1 wide receiver ad for the week?
My number 1 guy is Wan'Dale. We talked about small and shifty, right, Joe? Look,
I told you he was going to get more looks this week. I told you.
Hey, man, look, I love the talent of Wan'Dale.
They have no choice.
It's right. Somebody. And the thing
but you were right
is
on
that
Slayton too, which pissed me off. But you were right.
He got into the box, baby.
He did, baby.
All right.
He did. So frustrating.
Wan'Dale, and the thing about it is that we saw the Giants run a little bit up tempo. You saw Daniel Jones playing well, and I think that we could see the New York pass more since maybe they actually have some competent pass catchers now. You know, with Darius Slayton in the
Good
lineup,
matchup against
Wan'Dale
Seattle coming up too.
Absolutely, man. And where you attack Seattle is through the slot. We've been talking about this, Joe, every week on the DFS episode. You don't go against our outside corners. You stay in the slot. And with Wan'Dale, 69% of the snaps this week. He ran a route on 96% of Jones' passing attempts, 26% target share. Yeah, I mean, I love the next three matchups he has. Like, he gets Kobe Bryant in the slot against Seattle. Desmond King, you can beat in the slot against Houston. And then he gets Detroit, who Mike Hughes is allowing a 125 passer rating in coverage. So, yeah, sign me up, man. Like, in PPR leagues, I think Wan'Dale Robinson can settle into a nice wide receiver 3 floor in the upcoming weeks. If he gets into the box, you're talking about a top 24 wide receiver. And I love Murph putting Parris Campbell on here because that was my number 2 wide receiver. I could have made a really good case. I just see, like, between the two of them, my love for Alec Pierce, who was a full-time player this week, although if you're box score chasing, you're going to say he had a terrible game, but there are things to take away that are good. I think Alec Pierce is going to sit here and emerge down the back half of the season. So as much as I love Parris Campbell, who over the last 2 weeks, fellas, is wide receiver 6 in fantasy. Just chew on that for a second.
Let's move on. I don't even want to talk about it. Wan'Dale Robinson. No, but yeah, right. 45% rostership, by the way, on Sleeper for Wan'Dale. Parris Campbell, again, reminder at 11. I think Wan'Dale could be that guy, though, if you had DK out or Amon-Ra out this week. He could be that guy that fills that 1 week for you pretty well. I really do. I think there's a good matchup against Seattle. We talked about in the slot. I'm all in here on Wan'Dale again. Let's stay in that same game because you've got a Seattle guy, Murphy, you want to talk about at number 2 on your list.
Yeah, this is going to be called box score chasing, but it's not. It's purely just down to the injury and getting a part of what is surprisingly a pretty good offense.
Geno Smith, story of the season. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, Geno, baby.
Let's just make Pete Carroll coach of the year and be done with it.
I don't think we can do that. I think it's got to be Brian Dable now.
Yeah, it has to be Dable. But I just
honestly, Pete Carroll can't be far behind. You jokes aside, can't be far behind.
Almost choked on my Red Bull when he said that. Can't be far behind.
That was what I was going for. I just wanted to catch deeper in the act. Marquise Goodwin is he's 0% owned for a reason, but he's a really well established player. He's been around a long time. And the bottom line is that now DK Metcalf, it looks like his season's done. So we're trying to get ahead of it and looking about who is going to be the player to emerge out of there. And I just look at what happened when DK went down. Goodwin played a lot, especially the 11 personnel. So did Eskridge, but we've not seen anything from Eskridge.
He's an able veteran. You're 100% right, Murph.
And I think at the end of the day, you're looking at give me the guy who's been around the block a few times versus the young, unproven player in Eskridge. And again, 4 catches, 67 yards. Okay, 2 touchdowns. That's fluky. That's not happening every week. But he got open. He beat guys. And ultimately, Seattle in this weird scenario where they're chasing a wild card berth and they're going to go to guys who have been there and who have done it. Now, it's quite a shocking revelation. We sit here and talking about Seattle, but the NFC is that bad that 8 wins probably gets you in. Because he is that bad.
The NFC is just not good. I just talked about this on the BP show and the Look Ahead show. To me, and people were like, well, the 49ers really should have kept it close. This was the conversation I was having with Friedman. I was like, you have to understand something. Any of the elite AFC teams, whether it be Buffalo, would it be Kansas City, if you want to throw the Bengals who are starting to play really good football the last couple of weeks, like any of those teams against the better quote unquote NFC teams outside the Eagles right now, I'm just thoroughly unimpressed by the NFC collectively. And I think we all need to be. And I think we need to understand when those cross matchups happen and you see the powerful AFC team against the theoretical team in the NFC that's a powerhouse, it ain't the same power. It ain't the same house that you're living in. And Marquise Goodwin, 0% roster. I mean, why? Well, Marquise Goodwin, why not add him but
then look at the schedule. The schedule coming up as well. Their schedule is so difficult coming up. They're going to be behind in quite a few games. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and someone's going to catch the ball because you're now going to just put everything on Tyler Lockett. He's going to see some favorable matchups here, Marquise Goodwin, because the game script means they're going to throw the ball a lot more. They've got, I think, one of the 5 most difficult schedules in the next 6 games. You've got to look at that and think, Yeah, I fancy them probably even playing a lot of 11, maybe even seeing Eskridge come out there as well. But I think if I had to pick one between the two, Goodwin, just based on what we saw yesterday, was enough for me to
Goodwin's
go.
been around the block. I'm with you. Again, my expectations might be limited, but I think there's enough there, especially in a 12 or 14 team league where you add this guy immediately for sure. And of course, if ever there was a week where you need more help, maybe with waiver wire, this is it with all the injuries. So don't forget, FantasyPros.com/offers. Go make that deposit. Go upgrade to the 6 free months. Go use the waiver assistant on My Playbook. Go sync your teams to My Playbook and use the waiver assistant to help you find some of these guys that, maybe some other people in your league just aren't looking at. And this is the time of the year too where people stop being aggressive on the waiver wire because they give up on their teams. This is a chance for you who are kind of in that 3 to 4 win range to keep plugging along here. DBro, this is the point in the show where we do our weekly Add Jameson Williams, correct?
Yes, this is the weekly PSA. Okay. Apparently, we need to turn up the volume to 11 because he's still only rostered.
It's 48% now.
It's not above 50, Joe. It's not 60 or 70. It's not high enough. People need to get out there and look. At this point, we've done the PSA for the last 2 to 3 weeks. Considering that, it's not going to cost you much in Fab. If he's still out there, people have passed him by multiple times, multiple weeks. So 1 to 3%, you should be able to get Jameson Williams and enjoy it because as soon as he hits the NFL field, the runway is clear now. Like, DJ Chark is on the IR. We don't know when he's coming back. We might not see him the rest of the season. Who knows? Because this has been a lingering injury. Okay. Jameson Williams is going to be airdropped into what, yes, I know, they did not have a good week this week, but what has been a high-scoring Detroit Lions offense. We know their defense is going to remain terrible, so shootouts are still incoming for Detroit. So, yes, pick up Jameson Williams.
The Detroit offense without DeAndre Swift ain't the same offense. It's just not. It's not explosive. Jamal Williams isn't explosive. He's not that guy. All right, Murph, back to you. Who is your number 3 wide receiver to add for week 8?
Oh, let's talk about Zay Jones. Why not? Because I love Zay Jones. Like DBro, we play in a dynasty league. I took Zay Jones in that league. I've kept him all of this time before his big money move to Jacksonville, where his name was up in lights momentarily because everyone kind of laughed at how much money he gets. But he's a productive wide receiver. I mean, listen, again, it's not sexy. It's not one that you're going to sit there and be excited about picking up. But his 46 targets this season puts him amongst the top 24 wide receivers. So just volume alone, he's there on merit. And, he's played a game less than everybody else because he's been injured. And when you're sitting there and looking at the amount of targets going to these players, the top 30 all owned. They're all owned over 80%. So he's the only guy. And it's there on name alone. People just don't like him because it's not a sexy name. But all of his metrics point him towards elite usage. And then we've got the Christian Kirk scenario where Christian Kirk is a player who has, unfortunately, got injured over time. If that happened, Marvin Jones is a player who's already been injured this season. That volume is only going to go up because there's no one taking targets from Zay Jones. So even just as a floor play, he's a flex player at the minimum. But he's a top 36 contender every single week. What happens if Trevor Lawrence gets better? What if, and we're starting to see signs of this now.
I don't even know if it's Lawrence getting better so much as Lawrence being allowed to get better. Like, I feel, and look, this is something we've talked about on the show for 2 weeks, is the worm turning in that backfield. Well, the worm turned and the other worm got buried in that backfield yesterday. And as the evolution, I think, of this roster happens, it feels like, well, you have to open up the offense more. And Travis Etienne allows you to do that because what he brings to the table is a very unique skill set compared to what James Robinson is. And not knocking James Robinson, it's a different skill set. It's a different pedigree of running back. I'm sorry. Played in a big-time school, has all those makings of what could be a very exciting RB1 guy. And James Robinson has been an RB1 guy, again, but different. Very different in terms of mold of RB1. And why not open up this offense a little more when you could do that? Look at these targets for Zay Jones you're talking about. Week 3, 11. Week 4, he didn't play against the Eagles. Then 8 targets, 5 targets, 10 targets. That's a ton of volume. You're right, Murph. It's eventually got to go his way. And 34% rostered. It's pretty cheap. Let's go to your next name here on the list, DBro. Who you have, wide receiver?
I mean, look, we're talking about players that people don't like just because of the helmets and what have you. Tyquan Thornton is only rostered in 22% of leagues. And again, it's not going to take you much. I mean, the guy came out and in week 16 scored 2 touchdowns. He got usage on the ground, through the air, 16% target share. He was running a route on almost 80% of dropbacks. And people said, It's the Patriots. Nah, we're good. Same
Well, I
thing they
guess
said
they're
about
also
Jacoby
saying it's Bailey
Myers.
Zappi, and now with Mac Jones back, you don't know. I guess that's the question.
I mean, they don't like any Patriots wide receivers. Jacoby Myers got
I don't
nearly
like
a 30%.
any Patriots wide receivers, and I'm a Patriot fan. I can tell you that. I'm very unhappy with the whole group.
Well, then we gotta talk about your bias, Joe. Jacoby Myers is a total baller. When a 30% target share was sitting out on the waiver wire for like the first 5 weeks of the season, it was blasphemous. And the fact that, look, I understand and Joe, you talked about it. We're at the point of the season where you need to recalibrate your expectations, name values, teams, all these different things. Tyquan Thornton, and I'll throw Alec Pearson here. We talk about these sexy names, these rookies that could play up down the stretch. Everybody brings up all these other names. Why can't it be Tyquan Thornton? For a Patriots offense that has looked better in the last
he's
few
the
weeks.
one thing that they've lacked, which is speed on that offense.
Yeah,
That's the one thing they don't have.
afterburners, man.
That's what he's got speed for days. So if you're going to get him the ball creatively, I'm all for it. I want to see that evolution. I think the hesitation comes from the fact that was Bailey Zappi, not Mac Jones. I don't think it's so much about the logo on the helmet so much as that. That's my feeling. I could be wrong. You might be right that it's just all about the unknown Patriots doing something different every single week, which is fair. They've earned that moniker. Murph, who's earned some, and by the way, Tyquan Thornton, 22% rostered on the Sleeper app. How much would you pay for Tyquan?
I think you can get him away for cheap. 1 to 2% probably. He's already, it's been since week 6 when he put up the numbers, and he's still out there in this much of leagues. It's not going to take you much.
All right, Murph, give me one more name at wide receiver you want to add this week.
This one's what we call in England a puncher's chance. It's a real, out there left field take. But just hear me out on this. K.J. Hamler is available in 91% of leagues. He's only 9% owned. We know that the Broncos are fielding calls for Judy. For some reason, I don't know why, it's not working. It's not working with Judy. It's not working with this offense. And a lot of things have got to change. And I can see them cashing in now because the way that this offense is going in the trajectory of Jerry Judy, he is someone who is becoming less valuable by the month. And we're talking about a top 15 NFL draft pick who was one of the best route runners in college. We're talking about one of the players who was just slick, polished. It's just not working. I really see an opportunity where he could go. Now, and this is what you're gambling on. If Jerry Judy doesn't go, this pick is completely worthless. But if he goes, similar to Deonta Foreman, I was telling people pick up Deonta Foreman in the the thought process that Christian McCaffrey will get traded. Because if you can get ahead of it, you're then looking at an opportunity where you can make hay. And this is what you're trying to do, especially if you are only got 2 or 3 wins on the board. Now, if you're 7-0, you don't need to worry about this. This is not the sort of stuff that's going to elevate you from good to great. But if you are sitting there and you need to find some magic dust or magic beans from somewhere, these are the sorts of moves that you have to make. K.J. Hamler in his career, he's got a 17.7% targets per route run when he's played in the slot. Jerry Judy's been playing the slot. K.J. Hamler's much better in the slot, which is why he's been pretty poor out wide, Hamler, this season. But there's a bit of talk from the beat writers. If you follow the All 32 beat writers handle on Twitter, there's been a bit of talk that they want to get Hamler into this Tyler Lockett role that is familiar to Russell Wilson and combine Wilson's former playbook with what they're doing right now. When you start hearing noises like that, that says to me there's some credence here in these trade rumors that actually there is a chance here that Judy can go. And if he goes and this offense gets better, KJ Hamler is going to be the single biggest winner on this offense. It can't continually stay this bad. So it's a gamble, but he's not very well owned. You can pay $1. Maybe no,
you're right.
tops.
And this is a great ad in a 14-team league too. If you're in a deeper league, I think you do this ahead of time, like Murph's saying. I'd love to see Judy get traded to the Giants. I think the Giants need to be in the market for a wide receiver. He fits perfectly too, I think, because I think you look next year, they're going to turn the page on that cap to some of those other investments they made that they ain't going to have next year. And I think Judy would be somebody you can really start to build around. Let's get to the quarterbacks. Who are you streaming this week, DBro, at the QB position?
He keeps running, keeps putting up fantasy points.
Sure does, don't he?
It's gonna be on my rosters, man. Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, 1 to 3% of your fab. It's not gonna take much. He's rostered in 40% of sleeper leagues. He's got 60 or more rushing yards in 3 of his last 5 games. He just went over the century mark. The turf monster did not get him. He made 100 yards rushing on the ground. Look, this last week I was talking about. With Slayton, with Wan'Dale, with them looking like they actually have wide receivers that can get open. The third time this season that Daniel Jones has, and only the third time, that he has surpassed 30 passing attempts. So I think that we could see Brian Daboll, who this offense has been moving pretty quickly, just not been passing the ball. They could open it up a little bit for Daniel Jones, and now he gets Seattle, who is 3rd highest in yards per attempt allowed, 8th highest in passing touchdown rate. Yeah, Daniel Jones should be picked up. He should be rostered. And if you have Mahomes or Herbert, this is the guy you need to be going after to plug the starting spot.
All right, Murph, your QB, it's an interesting choice because there's been a lot of rumor that Andy Dalton's just going to keep this job, but you want to add Winston. Why?
I don't think he does keep the job. I don't think you can play like you do on Thursday. Yeah, I know we had moments on Thursday Night Football where he looked good, but he threw 2 pick sixes.
Well, you can also look at that as he threw 6 total touchdowns.
Well, to be fair, one of those was not his fault. We'll give Marquez Callaway the Butterhands Award for one of those.
Fair. I always feel like, there's an official score in baseball. I always say this. I don't understand why in the NFL there is an official score. When a ball hits a guy in the hands, why isn't it an interception on a wide receiver? It drives me crazy. I feel bad for the quarterback.
I don't disagree with you at all.
It will change in the next 10 years.
What's accounted to quarterbacks. But I mean,
it's so easy to see, and you could absolutely say, well, that ball was in target. It was in a catchable radius. We have all these deep stats about catch radius and all this stuff now. Why can't we look at that and say, that's not on the quarterback? Poor Eli Manning. Hall of Famer, by the way.
Gosh, this is okay.
Who's going to? Imagine how many interceptions would have come off of his.
Good about Eli.
Murph, let's keep talking about Winston.
Because I can't talk about Eli Manning. What are you doing? So anyway,
this is like a personal thing between me.
We're looking at Jameis Winston. Okay, this guy, we know he can throw the football. Yeah, he's got a mistake in him or two. I do think he comes back because this offense is better when he's under the gun. He's so much better than Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is just. He's a guy you play out to finish a season. You know, when your season's all done and dusted, that's when you roll out Andy Dalton just to protect your quarterback. And I think there's a referendum here on Winston. I think he has this season to prove he's either going to be the guy to take this team forward, or they're going to go and get another QB. Don't forget, he's a first overall pick, and he has put up over 5,000 passing yards, and he has put up touchdowns. Yeah, you've always got the interception problem, but that has seemed to have subsided slightly with better coaching in New Orleans. And I'm looking at what they've got, and you look at their weapons. When you've got someone like Chris Olave, who's a massive field stretcher, and you've got someone like Michael Thomas who can make plays and bring up those yak, you've got so much talent in that wide receiver room. They can't run the ball that well. Kamara's not been as good and as efficient as normal. Mark Ingram has been pretty much running in treacle all season long with less than 3 yards per carry. I just think they've got to do something different. If they and the South is in play. As bad as the Saints have been, that whole division is awful.
The Buccaneers are just continuously just giving it back to everybody.
But the Buccaneers are still top of the division. They're still top of the division with a less than 500 record. Everybody's only one game out of it. Like, you're looking at this now thinking, they need to put up points to win games. That's what's going to happen. We're not going to do that often with Andy Dalton. We haven't seen it. I think you're going to go with Winston. I think it's going to happen, and I think he's been dropped now to 29%. He was around 60% before he got injured. I think you got to pick him up now, and then you'll benefit from it later on.
All right, Murph, give me the tight end real quick. You want to add this week? Possible streamer for you.
Look at this. I'm going with another Bronco.
Oh, man. You are all in on this. This is fun. It's like shopping at the clearance rack here for Broncos. All right,
you got to play Joe on waivers for Broncos. He loves them so much.
I've been on the Broncos for 3 weeks, and I'm just glad everybody else has finally had that moment where they've come to their realization that they're not any good.
I mean, they've not been good, but the bottom line is Greg Dulcich has been good. He's been the only one in this offense that you can pretty much rely on. 6 and 9 for 51. It's not sexy, but that's still a tight end one performance. If you're still getting 11 PPR points, this is what you're doing. But his usage is going up. 19.7% target rate. is great for a tight end. Anyone else in that range is already playing in the tight end position for in fantasy football. So you've got all of that. And then again, the Broncos' schedule gets harder. They're not going to have these games. All right, they're losing the easy games. But we're looking at the schedule. I've already mentioned it's going to get so much tougher that they are going to have to get something going in this offense. And I think you're going to see a sea change over the next week or two. I think this is the last time you're going to get Dulcich reasonably cheap. I think with his usage and his volume, he's going to be a low-end tight end one for the rest of the season.
All right, DBro, who are you adding at tight end this week?
I love that Murph brought up Dulcich because that was the two names that I bounced in between before I bring on my guy, because I think he's got really good streamer appeal over the next 2 games that he plays against Jacksonville and Tennessee. Both teams that have been giving it up versus the tight end. But the guy I want to bring up, and we're talking about streamers, there's no other guy that I could bring up on this list besides Irv Smith. He gets the flow chart. He gets Arizona this week. He is only rostered in 37% of sleeper leagues, and we just saw what Juwan Johnson did, baby. And now
sure did.
Irv Smith gets a defense that has allowed the most receptions, the most receiving yards, and the most receiving touchdowns to tight end. Yes, Irv Smith is going to be probably a top 10 play this week, and the fact that he is out there, you can get him right now, is crazy.
That's mad. Yeah, I saw that as well. I thought, yeah, it's definitely going to be Irv Smith, but it's boring to be the same, DBro, so that's why I pivoted.
Yeah, it's okay to. I like when everybody has a consensus here. That's always a good thing. And Juwan Johnson, boy, did you crush that one? You nailed that. We talked about it on the BP show too, you and I. All right, let's get to the defense of the week. DBro, who you got?
I'm going to go with the Washington Commanders. They're only rostered at 4% of sleeper leagues. This is a defense nobody's going to be clamoring to get because they're going to say, oh, their secondary's bad. And I'm going to say I really don't care if their secondary's bad because it's very few defenses out there that you can find that does what the Commanders do as well as they do it, and that is blitz and pressure the quarterback. We saw Aaron Rodgers fall apart for most of that game. Told you, Joe. Thought the Commanders could win that ball game. And if they're going to continue to win games, it's because of his defense. The 3rd in pressure rate, 12th in blitz rate. They have a tough run defense, so they can force quarterbacks into drop-back scenarios, and that's where we get turnovers. That's where we get sacks. That's where we get fantasy points. So, yeah, Washington Commanders, baby.
Well, 1%. Nobody's happier than me about me being wrong about the Packers this week. I mean, I enjoyed that so thoroughly. But I mean, it was all there. And then Aaron Rodgers after that game saying what he said, which is, I think this is exactly what this team needs. They need to go to Buffalo on Sunday Night Football now. Like, that's exactly what you need? To go play the best team in the NFL coming off a bye on Sunday Night Football? Good luck with that, my friend.
To rip off 3 straight losses? I don't think
this is exactly where, you're raw underdogs.
I watched him in London, and it was a painful watch. And at halftime, they were winning, and I just heard the Packers fans all around me with their cheese helmets on. I was just saying, you realize you're going to lose this game. You're going to lose. Like, you realize that you had to be up by 15 at half, 14 at half. You had to be up significantly because the Giants are a second half team and especially a fourth quarter team. No one's putting up more points than fourth quarter.
That's what good teams do.
I guess my biggest question here is that we saw Sauce wear the cheese hat. Then we saw one of the Commanders guys wear. They lose versus the Bills. Is Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs donning the
Allen
cheese
won't
hat?
do it. Allen won't do it. He's too classy.
So it's got to be
Von Miller. Von Miller could wear the cheese hat. That's my money. Can we bet that somewhere? I want to bet Von Miller to wear the cheese hat. If anybody's going to wear the cheese, and he'll look good doing it.
Do you know how much they were selling those cheese hats for in London? It was £60.
£60.
I need to give it
to
that
conversion. Well, given it's almost
DBro has no idea what that means.
No, I was like, that just went, Murph. I need a conversion right here.
$55.
Wow, really? Okay, now you get the delayed reaction.
There you go. All right, let's go, Murph. Give me your streaming defense of the week. Who you got?
I've gone very similar reasons, but slightly different. I've gone with Tennessee. Now they've got Houston.
Good matchup.
This is a great matchup. You're talking about what's Houston's strength? The run game. Tennessee have one of the best run games in the NFL. 3rd in defensive DVOA against the run. 2nd lowest in yards. They've only given up 1 rushing touchdown all season. The Texans are terrible on the road as well. They've won 5 games in 2.5 years on the road. 3 of them have been against Jacksonville. So, they don't beat teams not called Jacksonville often. And Davis Mills, He's going to give you plenty of opportunity to turn this ball over. He's only thrown 7 touchdowns this season, 5 interceptions, but 4 fumbles. We're looking at opportunities. I'm like DBro. I don't care about the yards. I don't care about the point. They don't give you that much in terms of a negative fantasy score. Give me the sacks. Give me the turnover situations. I also love the fact that Tennessee are at home. I always, when I'm looking at streaming Ds, I want to try and get a team at home. They just seem to perform more consistently at home. So 21% or the 20.5% owned on Sleeper, Tennessee. So shouldn't, again, be getting a huge... And look what they just did to poor Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's going to be like... You're going to have to put him in like... I don't know what you put in like... medical. They're not put enough tape to strap him up for the next week because he got absolutely pummeled. So yeah, I just think this Tennessee Titans D is on a bit of a rise, and then also don't forget they're going to have a rookie quarterback probably playing next week. So more opportunities for them to see the field and make plays.
Okay, let's get to the top 5 overall ads. Just run through them for us here. So those are for the leagues that have waiver claims and not fab. DBro, who are your top 5 ads of the week?
Wan'Dale Robinson is top of the list, then Chuba Hubbard, Gus the Bus, Parris Campbell, and then you can back it up depending on the composition of your roster with Tyler Allgeier or Jameson Williams.
Murph, who are your top 5?
Yeah, so I put Michael Carter, but obviously he's not going to be out there in too many leagues. But I've got Gus Edwards, Parris Campbell, Marquise Goodwin, and Khalil Herbert.
Michael Carter's rostered in a lot of leagues, which is why I didn't lead with him today, just because he's just... But he's out there in some. Go trade for him if you can. Yeah. I think he's got more value than people even realize potentially in a trade because this is the Jets offense. All right, let's play a quick little game of keep or drop. We'll get to your listener mailbag and we'll get out of here. Keep or drop. I'm going to give you a player and a roster percentage on Sleeper. You tell me if you want to keep or drop him. Let's keep this running here. Murph, Jeffrey Wilson Jr., 66% rostered. Are you keeping him or are you dropping him?
See ya. He's got to go.
DBro.
Drop. Bye, El Jefe. Love you.
Oh, so sad. Kenyon Drake. These are some big numbers on the guys I chose this week. But again, this is where we're at. It's making hard decisions. Kenyon Drake, 65% rostered. DBro, keep or drop?
Drop. Yeah. Bye. Gone.
Okay. Russell Wilson, 73% rostered. Keep or drop? Derek Brown?
I don't like the sandwiches. I don't like Russ. Bye-bye, Captain Cringe.
Those sandwich. How about you there, Murph?
I'd try and trade him first because I'm sure someone...
For a sandwich. Maybe you can get a Subway
you wouldn't even get a
card.
sandwich, a day-old sandwich or anything. Maybe if it's moldy.
Over here, he's a bit more liked. I guess because he just did a recent tour of London before the season. So I try and find someone that took a picture and went, go on, look, you can now own him in fantasy football. Give me $5. I try and get anything, but if not, I'd drop him.
Mike Boone. Sorry, DBro. I know this one hit you hard. Murph, keep or drop Mike Boone?
See ya.
Gone.
He's got to go.
Bye.
All right, there you go. Bye. So what a difference a week makes. He was like your number one guy. Now you want to drop him.
That's what it is, man.
That's what it is. James Robinson. Okay. I know he's 87% rostered, but I'm talking in 10-team leagues here, where now all of a sudden these other guys with more workload might be popping up. Potentially. You could say hold or keep him.
I'd
hold him. What do you want to do?
I'd hold him only because there aren't that many guys that are better than him right now.
Well, I'm just saying, if you could, let's say it's a 10-team league, and this is a realistic thing. Michael Carter's out there, probably in a 10-team league. Foreman's out there in a 10-team league.
Chuba.
Maybe you need wide receiver help. You lost DK Metcalf. Wan'Dale's out there. You're going to add, circumstantially, but theoretically, DBro, you want to keep or hold it. Keep or drop him. Pardon me.
Drop him in a 10-team for some of the names you mentioned. Keep in a 12-team.
Yeah.
I would try to trade him first, just to be clear out there for everybody, because I think he still has some value out there.
Well, you try to maybe lump him in
as ETN, just to cover themselves.
That's it. That's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, you lump him in with a wide receiver, go to the ETN team, and upgrade your wide receiver position.
Yeah.
All right. This is from our listener mailbag over at fantasypros.com/chat, our Discord channel. Go join it. And remember when I told you about the offers? When you go upgrade at fantasypros.com/offers, you get the whole thing where you get the 6 free months of premium, you get the waiver assistant, you get the Discord, you can talk to us, which I know is everyone's dream. It should be. Dr. Pitts. Hopefully this is not Kyle Pitts related. Dr. Pitts, drop Madison. I have Cook for Carter since Hall went down. So this is the point in the season where I say, these are the moves you make. You're playing to win, not playing not to lose. What do you guys think? I see you nodding your head, Murph. You agree?
All day long. First of all, I don't like handcuffing your own running back. I just feel like it's a negative.
It's one of the better ones. We all know Madison is one of those better ones if you're going to do it.
He is, but they're not the same team that they were last year. They're not the same rushing offense that they were in previous years. Different personnel. They want to put the ball in the air more. But even despite that, Michael Carter is potentially the last, as I said this earlier, potentially the last league winner that you're going to get this season. It's going to be one of the last guys potentially you might see unless something significant happens. So, yeah, I'm dropping Mattison. I would have dropped him anyway, I think, this week for a usable player, especially if you've got a losing record. If you're 6-0, 7-0, this is a slightly different conversation. But
fair.
But no, I think at the end of the day, I'm taking Carter over Mattison. Pretty much any handcuff back at this point.
DBro, your thoughts?
I think there's probably somebody better on their roster that they could drop outside of Madison. But if you're in a pinch, yeah, I don't hate it. Go get Carter.
Go check out the 5 Yard Rush podcast. Murph is the host, does phenomenal work. I've been on there a million times. It's such a great show. And to watch it go from the startup show that it was to what it's become now, the playbook, everything that you're doing here, Murph, you go follow him on the Twitter machine at Murph_NFL. Go follow them at 5 Yard Rush as well on the Twitter machine. Go subscribe to the pod, Murph. It was great that we finally got to get you on here today. It's great you're doing work with us at Fantasy Pros. And enjoy another London game. Are you going this weekend?
No, I went to the one. I went to the Giants Packers. No, I just trying to be a bit more of a family man. I'm off to Munich in a couple of weeks to go and watch Buccaneers versus Seahawks.
Oh, your Buccaneers. I hope your Buccaneers turn it around because it's looking like maybe Tom Brady stayed the dance 1 year too many, and sometimes that's what happens. You know, what are you going to do?
Hard one.
Where's Bruce Arians when you need it? You know, the problem is you take away the bald-headed geniuses. This is what happens. That's why we have numerous ones here on this program. Always great to talk to you, Murph. Always great to have you on the show. Again, if you need more assistance, don't forget the waiver assistant is there for you over at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or download the app. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Murph and DBro, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.